The 49ers are all the way back, and I just got back from the dentist. Half my mouth is numb, so we're just gonna have to deal with it. New podcast starts right now.
Welcome, everybody.
We are live.
My name is Jason Aponte.
I am Andrew Pasquini.
We're working. That's it. We're working over here. That's it. Let's go Niners.
Let's go Niners.
Sprint Ride Option Podcast.
This is gonna be so. Listen, I tried to schedule my I scheduled my dentist appointment at 3:00 to avoid this, and they were like an hour late. This entire side of my mouth is very numb right now. Okay, guys, this is a new Sprint Ride Option podcast. Bear with me for like 15 minutes while hopefully I get feeling in my mouth. I feel the drool coming down my face right now. It's real bad. This is the Sprint Ride Option Podcast. I am Andrew Pasquini, joined as always by Jason Aponte. This is a fire start to the podcast. We love it. Jason, how are you doing on this Monday evening?
Oh my God, I'm doing great. Like I was excited to talk with you because the 49ers won. And now we can talk about things that are great, but I just feel like this has just been taken to a whole other level. And I want you to understand that every reaction you're seeing right now is absolutely genuine. When I click on and I put Andrew onto the screen, right, and that picture
it's a photo
is so
I sent Jason of me in the dentist chair.
When I click on, he's like, "Hello there." It's just like you can tell that something's wrong. So this is all
it's
unscripted.
So numb. I haven't felt my tongue for like an hour.
It's
bad.
Unscripted. It's unscripted, by the way. Also, so bear with us. This is gonna be a barn burner of a show right now.
I thought maybe that I was gonna be able to get through it, and then I hadn't talked because I've been alone in my apartment for a few hours now. My girlfriend's at work and had the day off, and so the first time I started talking was the Jason before the podcast, and I'm like, this isn't gonna work. So just please, if it sounds like I'm like messing up words, it's because I can't feel my mouth right now. So we're going to grind through it. Hey, good news is we're in a good mood, though, Jason, because the 49ers won yesterday. Not only did they win, they won in pretty dominant fashion to the point where their touchdown that was scored at the 11:34 mark of the first quarter was the game-winning touchdown. This is what we've come to expect from the 49ers. And for this performance to come off of 3 consecutive games where the Niners weren't particularly good, it's very nice to see. It's nice to see that this Niners team still does exist. I didn't doubt that it existed. It's just good to see it. It's a good reminder after the last 3 weeks. So let's get your thoughts. Let's just get your kind of general thoughts of what we saw from the 49ers yesterday, Jason, because there's a lot to talk about. So let's just get right into the positions. But what were your kind of overarching thoughts of the 49ers?
When you're watching the game, you see the defense perform that way, and you're automatically like, hey, Steve Wilkes has been incredible, and he's fixing things. But nobody can tell you during the broadcast what they've changed, right?
Yeah.
But then you go back and you watch it, like I did today, and it's evident like what was going on. There's a lot of having Young and Bosa over the A gap, mugging over the center. Like those are things that the Jaguars were not looking for at all.
Yeah.
And those are the little things, right? And then you did notice a little bit of the sideline stuff. I know we made jokes about it and everything, but the sideline stuff, you look at Ambry Thomas, who makes a play and then says, "Thank you for believing in me." And then you see him doing the Javon Hargrave, celebration. Didn't exactly turn into Salah or D'Amico, but there was a little bit of improvement with that.
Yeah.
So I will give people the opportunity to victory lap. Like he needs to be down there for the vibes because the vibes were really good. But no, there were actual adjustments made. It's just you can look at the results and say, hey, the defense played better. Oh, he obviously changed something. What did he change? There's a lot of things, and it's a defensive front, and the guys on the back end played well. And when the pass rush is getting there, not much else matters on the back end.
No, and that's the funny thing, Jay. I kept thinking of you yesterday during the game because outside, I know a lot of people talked about the Mooney Ward conversation that happened between him and, but I felt like a lot of the times I saw Steve Wilkes on my TV yesterday, it was that very stone-faced look of just calling a football game, man. And so I thought of Jason, just you doing it on Friday. So we got a little bit of that, but we did see a little bit of the energy from him, which is good. I wasn't sure what we would get out of him on the sideline because I don't think you have to show emotion in the press box, but you show emotion on the sideline and you see it. But And I think I texted you too. Everybody's talking during the game. I texted you and I said, everybody's talking about Steve Wilkes on the sideline, but I'm sure you're going to find on the film, like the defense is doing things differently. So I'm excited to see what you found out with the defense. But as always, let's start with the offense. Offense looked really good yesterday. Start with the quarterback position. Am I maybe a little concerned that, Kyle Shanahan doesn't trust Brock Purdy in the 31-point blowout? Maybe a little bit. No, obviously that's a joke, Jason. Brock Purdy, 19 for 26, 296 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Third time in his career, he's thrown for more than 290 yards. But to me, I think the biggest takeaway outside, I think there's a few takeaways you can have. But to me, I talked about the turnovers, kind of Jacksonville's ability to force turnovers. You have Brock Purdy, who threw, 5 interceptions the last 3 games, excuse me. Seeing how that would work. And it's almost like the play that a lot of people are talking about, the first touchdown, kind of set the tone of like, hey, I'm going to do whatever I want today. I don't care where I throw it. I don't care how it looks. It's just going to work. So it's that. That's what I want to see from Brock Purdy. And what we saw yesterday of how he's going to bounce back. Because not every, I think this thing we lose in today's NFL is not every game is going to be a great game for an NFL quarterback. It's how they kind of respond. And if you can give me 3 what we call down games for Brock Purdy, where it was realistically 2 bad fourth quarters. Thank you, Jeff, for the donation. Drew, you sound like a foreigner, zesty foreigner. Then I guess so. I'll take zesty, anything really. Yeah. But if you're telling me that he's had 3 quote unquote bad games, so it was really back-to-back bad fourth quarters, and he's bouncing back with a 300-yard, I'm going to call it a 300-yard, but rounding up, giving him the benefit of the doubt. 3 touchdowns, no interception. I'll take that 10 out of 10 times. How you respond is more important than the bad games, and Brock Purdy responded yesterday.
That's kind of what we were talking about and what I kept saying. It's like, yeah, you can point to those moments where you're just like, that was a bad play, but overall, largely, that's how Brock Purdy has been playing this season, yes. And he put a whole game of it together. That wasn't very different from the guy you saw in Cincinnati. He just didn't turn the ball over. Again, I hate to say it, but in that Cincinnati game, he was the best player on the field. And Joe Burrow was playing well in that game. And then the turnovers happened. And then that's when, obviously you can sit there and say, well, the game was bad. But the turnovers are pushing away the view of the forest for looking at the trees, like whatever that stupid saying is. And it just it's more about the overall body of work, right? Like, and that's how he's been playing. So that was a full game of basically how he's been playing all season, essentially, right? Yeah. So it's just a few moments where those things happen, but everything else largely looks like that, and that's how it's been. And he's been good. He's been very good this year, and he's continuing to play well.
Yeah, and I think the throw, the first quarter touchdown throw, is kind of a microcosm of what Brock Purdy is. I don't think you can tell me that wasn't a dangerous throw. I even wrote it in my winners and losers. I made Brock Purdy a winner. Don't know if you know, Jason. We write for NinersNation.com. But I think I literally said, it was a pass that was intended for either Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Andre Cisco, or Tyson Campbell. An argument can be made for any of the players because that's what kind of throw it was. And I think those kind of plays are why there's people out there that has, they're a little more hesitant to kind of deem Brock Purdy that guy, because that's one of those throws where if it is intercepted, we're not hyping it up as we are. We're talking about how it's a dumb mistake. And I guess to take it to the umpteenth level, one of the dumbest decisions in NFL history is a Super Bowl a surprise onside kick at the half, or at the start of the second half, but we talk about it as an all-time great call because it worked. And it's that thing. That's a throw that I don't know if I want to see. Just any general, you're going to your left, shifting. I'll give him credit, shifting the shoulders, getting the throw lined up. That's very good. But anytime I see a quarterback scramble to the left and throw back to the middle of the field, to bring back a Jimmy Garoppolo term, it feels like it's going to be an oh-no-no throw. And Purdy just happened to get it over the top for the touchdown. So I think those are the throws that, while Niner fans are like, well, look how good he is, I think those are the same type of throws that kind of give people that hesitancy to say, yes, this is a guy who's going to be in the NFL for the next 5, 10, whatever years, and consistently doing it. So that's where I'm at. I thought it was a very good performance from Brock Purdy yesterday. We haven't even talked about his best throw. I just want to talk about that first touchdown real quick.
Kyle Shanahan called it the worst decision he's ever made. Mm-hmm. And that's why I tweeted. I was very shocked that was not a what PFF deems a turnover worthy throw.
Mhm.
But hey, that is your case study for process and results. Process wrong, result good. Sometimes process is sound, result bad. At the end of the day, it's a touchdown. No need to go back, but that's not a throw you want to see made all the
No.
time.
No, not at all.
And if that defender actually can gather himself and go up, they would have been able to make a play on that. But didn't happen. And that has nothing to do with the cost of tea and the price of China or whatever the hell that saying is. I'm killing it.
Jason just pulling out all the similes and all the comparisons. I love it. But we're talking about that throw. Let's talk about his best throw. His best throw. And maybe I don't know, Jason. You might know it a little better than I do, but I would argue it was the best throw of his career. Just of the circumstances too. Pocket completely collapsed on him. I think Trayvon Walker had a free run, not a free run, but got past Colton McKivitz, had a chance to get a lick on him. But Purdy stood tall, threw it, got it up, one-on-one situation. You have George Kittle against a tight end. George Kittle against a linebacker. You take that, 10 out of 10 times. Kittle makes the play, and he's so open that he starts celebrating at the 20-yard line. What was your thought, kind of your initial reaction to that play? And I guess the question is, let's do it like this. Do you see Brock Purdy more of a that throw quarterback or the first touchdown throw quarterback? Let's take it deeper than just 2 plays.
I mean, he's both, but I think what's important to note is his drop back coincides with the route combination. So he had to hit that. That's why if the pocket looks like it was collapsing, is the pocket, it's not a deep drop. So yes, the pass rush was winning, but generally on deeper dropbacks, it wouldn't look like it's collapsing. He would have a little bit more time.
Yeah.
So that was kind of important to note there. But the idea of standing in there and kind of putting it up where it's just like, well, I trust my guy to go get it. Either it's going to be incomplete or it's going to be caught. But then to have the ball like drop right in where it was supposed to. And then you see Kyle Shanahan celebrate.
Yeah.
He never celebrates anything. And that's like, those are some of the throws that I think that he has like designed for Purdy and for the quarterbacks who have been in the system that just don't get hit. And then that's when you see him like throw the shit down. But he's just so happy to see it happen, right? Like, and he's just, it's like, wow, like that's exactly what was supposed to happen. Right. It comes to fruition. So I think it's important to note that the drop back was a little bit shorter just because of the route combination. And then being able to step up in that pocket and let the ball go and put it where it needs to be for Kittle. Just a fantastic throw, an absolutely fantastic throw. And if Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes made the same throw, the glazing would be insane.
Yes. Yeah. Shanahan's reaction had the feel of, in 5 years, when Brock Purdy leads this team to at least 2 Super Bowls, and somebody asked Kyle Shanahan, like, hey, what was the moment you knew Brock Purdy was him? I feel like you can go back to that throw and that reaction, because that's what it almost felt like. It feels like Kyle Shanahan's been waiting for that thrown to be hit for 7 years now, and it got hit yesterday, and it felt like that was the reaction we got out of it. So yeah, to me that was probably the play. I think we're thinking 20 games we're at with Brock Purdy now. That's probably the one that I'm going to remember for the longest, at least until he wins that Super Bowl in February this year, right? But until then, like that to me is the quintessential Brock Purdy throw at this point in his career.
Yeah, I mean, again, everybody's going to get lost in that throw, but there were so many good throws in this game. Never really felt like Brock was ever out of sorts. We're going to talk about the offensive line, I'm sure, but it never felt like Brock was ever out of sorts in this game. Like, again, like that, largely how he played on Sunday is largely how he's played the entire season. Again, the few throws have muddied the entire conversation. People have tossed out the large body of work this year because he threw an interception in the fourth, or he threw an interception. Yeah, but like for 3.5 quarters or 3 quarters, he was great. This is how he's played mostly this season. So, I mean, I just want to make sure that we keep talking about that, because it's funny to think that while everyone was quick to say, well, we've got our guy, it's like after 3 games, it's like, damn, well, is he our guy now? It's like, man, like, guys, everybody relax and everybody taking all the information, and please keep gathering information. No need for these grand statements. He's playing very well this year. That's it. Like, I don't understand. The rush to crown and then the rush to knock him off is the most insane part of the Brock Purdy discourse, without it being, we need to actually gather information on the young man and figure out what's going on with him, because he's still 14 starts in. Gather information. Relax, everybody. Please. I promise you the hot takes aren't going anywhere. I promise you'll be able to fire them off as quickly as you can. I don't understand why anybody needs to crown or knock him down instead of saying we're gathering information. And right now, the information we're gathering is very good overall.
More good than bad. Very, very much more good than bad. And as I said, like even the last 2 games, it felt like he had good first 3 quarters, and then the fourth quarter things kind of fell apart. But hey, is what it is. Over time, those fourth quarters are going to get a little bit easier, ideally at least, and you see a little bit of growth. So we go from the quarterback spot. Oh wait, sorry, we didn't talk Sam Darnold. Any impressions on Sam Darnold, Jason Aponte?
I can't believe I have to unmute myself for this. No, don't care.
No, okay, cool. Running backs then. Christian
If he was a better quarterback, he would have got McCaffrey his touchdown.
That was a joke. That's what I wanted to go with. That's what I was looking for. So thank you for getting there. Christian McCaffrey, 16 for 95, ripping off 6 yards per carry. Deebo Samuel, 3 carries for 29 yards. Elijah Mitchell, pretty heavy workload yesterday, 8 for 23. And then Darnold, 3 kneel outs, 3 for -3. It is what it is. Nobody cares. I think the big story out of the running back room is probably Christian McCaffrey not able to extend that touchdown streak. He won't break the record. He's just going to have to settle with tying the record. I think yesterday was the loosest we've ever seen Kyle Shanahan. I don't think Kyle Shanahan last year or even 2 years ago puts Christian McCaffrey back in that game to try and break that record. But it legitimately looked like he was having fun calling that last drive. And I don't know why that's what it took for him to look like he was having the time of his life on the sideline. That was probably the takeaway I had for the running game. I think having Deebo Samuel there, I think really changes. I think Trent Williams changes a lot more of the run game than we give him. Not than we give him credit for. We know how good Trent Williams is. But having Deebo in that backfield, I mean, if you just take away Deebo Samuel's 3 for 29 and the touchdown, and you just say Christian McCaffrey had 16 for 95 and Elijah Mitchell had 8 for 23, we're talking about how Elijah Mitchell probably shouldn't be the second running back. But you have Deebo Samuel in between to kind of take carries and make it work. And you know how good he is in that open space. I mean, that touchdown he had, the 23-yard touchdown, it was one of those where like the second you saw him cross the line of scrimmage with the ball and kind of how things were laid out, it was almost like a guaranteed touchdown. So I know I touched on all the running backs there, Jason. Give you a little bit of room to talk here. Give me your whole thoughts on the running backs. Give me your thoughts on McCaffrey's streak. What did you think from the backfield?
Well, McCaffrey, the line did well in this game. Spencer Burford had his best game. Feliciano is going to play more. Obviously, Kyle Shanahan already talked about Feliciano being part of the rotation with Burford. Essentially, he's Brunskill again. So you can see that going forward when Banks comes. But McCaffrey was good. I have a little bit of a hot take. I was a little bit more encouraged by Elijah Mitchell at the end of the game, even though his stats don't look great. It kind of looked like a little bit more getting downhill, hitting holes. I think there's a reason that he's not being used is because he's not particularly effective right now. But there was a little glimmer of like him, hitting the hole, gaining yards, looking a little bit more comfortable. So I choose to use that to possibly springboard him and possibly help Christian McCaffrey, because you can align both of them at the same time on the field. You don't have to necessarily take McCaffrey off the field, but then he doesn't have to take all of the rushes. So I think that's my overarching thing is like, man, maybe Elijah Mitchell's finding something. And he doesn't have to be that guy that he was when he, rushed for 1,000 yards. He just has to be capable. Because you can't play TDP and Jordan Mason isn't being used. So, Deebo Samuel seems to be the backup running back. It would be a little bit better if Elijah Mitchell can show up a little bit more. And he, at the end, even when they knew that they were running the football, he still was able to get yards. Sure, the Jaguars defense probably was a little tired because they had been getting worn out all day, but it was really good to see Elijah Mitchell at least gain positive yards and hope that maybe he's getting into the flow of things and actually like running the ball well.
Yeah, and I think that's more my point too. Is it's obvious Mitchell needs to get there, but it's a little easier when he's the third running back to kind of watch him try and figure it out than he is the second. Because I feel like with the second running back situation, if you're getting more production like Deebo Samuel, or you're getting 10 yards per carry, it's easier to cover up that 3 yards per attempt from Elijah Mitchell. And that's my thing. So that's where I'm at with Elijah Mitchell. I think that third spot is going to be a good spot for him to maybe try and figure things out, because the 2.9 yards per attempt, a little bit of an improvement over the past few weeks. I mean, the 23 yards is a big improvement considering what he was at negative yards over the last 3 weeks. So I will gladly take that situation. But I'm not thrilled by the numbers, but I definitely see what you're saying with kind of seeing how it worked out overall. So ideally, Deebo Samuel stays healthy, and we don't have to have this conversation about the running back depth and have Deebo be that second running back. But until then, let's see where Elijah Mitchell goes. How about that? Is that a fair take?
Absolutely. And again, it's all optimism after a game like that, right? So you try to pick at little things like that, and it could be something that we could see going forward. So I mean, just be optimistic that Elijah Mitchell maybe is getting into the flow of things, and it won't have to be Christian McCaffrey every single time.
Exactly. Yes, and then that's kind of what it is. So let's go to the receiving core. George Kittle leads the way, 3 receptions for 116 yards. Obviously, that 66-yard touchdown boosts that a bit, but I mean, 3 receptions for 116 is insane. I mean, that's a 40-yard per pop. Brandon Ayuk, 3 for 55. Christian McCaffrey, 6 for 47. Ayuk did have the touchdown as well. Samuel, 4 for 30. Kyle Juszczyk, 2 for 26 and a touchdown. Ronnie Bell, 1 for 20. Juwan Jennings, 1 for 8. And I feel like I'm going to keep saying it, but this is just a good game to be like, hey, George Kittle's here, man. Like I know we talk about his usage a lot, but I feel like that's what makes these games so much more effective. Is we're not talking about him having good games here and there where it's like 5 for 60 and then he's going off for this 3 for 116. It's why the hell is George Kittle not getting the football? And then it's, here it is all at once, touchdown. He's a big part of the offense. And I honestly, this might be my hot take of the podcast. I think I'm comfortable with that role for him. I think I'm comfortable for that. You don't use him for a few weeks, make people forget he exists. And then, and obviously, I don't think people can forget George Kittle exists in a vacuum, because if a head coach comes out and says, well, George Kittle went for 3 for 120 because we forgot he exists, you should probably fire that head coach. But he's easy to forget in the landscape of an offense that includes Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey. And he's just there. And I think that's what makes these games more impactful for him.
Well, I mean, it's 3 straight games with over 75, back-to-back 100-yard games. I mean, Deebo was back. Just find ways to get the ball to him. And if you have an advantageous matchup, just take care of it. Again, it's always going to be one of these guys that's going to suffer in terms of production, right? Like Ayuk has 3 for 55 and a touchdown. Felt like he could have had a little bit more, right? But
only had 3 targets.
Either him. Yeah, but it's him, it's Kittle. It's one of those guys that's always going to suffer, right? Like eventually. Like I think the one guy that you can set your watch to is obviously Christian McCaffrey. Deebo's going to get involved because of how the offense looks when he's there. He scores a rushing touchdown. But between Ayuk and Kittle, it's always going to be one of those guys that's left out in the cold. And probably more often than not, it would be George Kittle. But this is 3 straight games over 75 yards, back-to-back 100-yard games. Maybe not. Again, like we kind of saw this connection at the end of the year last year with Purdy and him, helping him with his touchdown totals. And all those guys were healthy down the stretch as well, too. Maybe we get back to that a little bit. So, again, I don't know like how to explain it, right? Everybody just says, he's helping pass block, or he's helping run block. There's just times where like they're throwing the ball and he's out there running routes and he's not getting thrown the ball. Yeah. But the offense is way more potent when everybody's involved and you have to take a look at everybody instead of wiping somebody off the board.
Did you have any other receivers you want to kind of specifically point out here? Because I felt like go ahead. Yeah, because I felt like yesterday's game was more about Purdy than really the receivers, because he spread the ball out so well. No receivers with more than 4 receptions. So I think it was more of a Purdy game than anything else. But I want to make sure you get your thoughts on your receivers.
I got a question for Kyle Juszczyk. What is your problem, pal?
Is the touchdown?
Yeah, what is your problem?
I felt like he tried to sit at the 1, and
he wanted to.
Momentum kind of took him back. I
He
think that's
wanted
what
to.
it was. Yeah.
I think he wanted to, but also dogs got to eat too, right? Like when he goes to his contract negotiation, he's got to be like, "Hey, I caught a touchdown pass,"
Got that
like.
one
But I
touchdown,
just,
5 million
I
more.
just was like, I was just like, yo, everybody but McCaffrey. Like I literally wrote an article that I was just like, oh, we're going back to our free money with Christian McCaffrey. Let's nail it down. Forget it. No, best loss now because of that. So, Kyle Juszczyk, I have a lot of questions. The first of all, how dare you? How
How
dare
dare
you?
you?
How dare you, man? Like, and
For
then
reference, I know.
yeah, and then the same thing, like Sam Darnold. If you were a better quarterback, you would have got him that ball, man. If
No,
Purdy would have been in there, they would have got him that touchdown, man. So again, I
absolutely.
think certain people failed Christian McCaffrey on this day. He didn't fail himself.
Perfect. All right, let's go. Let's go. Offensive line, Jason. I thought the offensive line had a pretty good game, very good game outside of maybe Colton McKivitz. I don't know if that's unfair of me or maybe me just kind of jumping the gun. I put him as a loser yesterday because it really felt like every time that the Jaguars got a sack, Walker was in the backfield, kind of
The
affecting
who?
things, getting past Colton McKivitz. What?
The who? What team?
Jaguars. Dude, how my mouth is numb. You can't expect Jaguars to come out perfectly right now. Okay. Jacksonville. It felt like every time Jacksonville had sack, and it was only 2 sacks, but it felt like anytime there was a pressure in the backfield, it came from McKivitz's side. I know you watched the tape. I have the pressure numbers in front of me. He was actually awarded 4 pressures. Trent Williams on the other side also credited for 4 pressures. Outside of that, not much. Christian McCaffrey, got to trade him, allowed a pressure. So bum, right? And then John Feliciano only allowed 1 pressure. Burford had a pretty solid game, especially in the run game, I think. But what was your thoughts on the line? And am I being too harsh on Colton McKivitz?
No, you're not, because Kyle Shanahan already talked about the fact that Jalen Moore can hop over and play right tackle. I don't know why you're putting that out there. It's KP actually said that he thought it would be an overreaction to do that. And then the press conference, Kyle says, hey, Jalen Moore is going to take reps at right tackle.
Yeah.
Time's ticking. They're almost done with this.
Maybe the real quick. Sorry to interrupt, but maybe the worst way to put it for at least this podcast and the fans will understand it. I tweeted the DeJuan Jones thing yesterday after McKivitz allowed another pressure sack, and I think it's fine. I think the meme is just pivoting from like, why'd you take a kicker before DeJuan Jones to like, how did you just not take DeJuan Jones in the 3rd round when you knew Colton McKivitz was going to be your right tackle? And that's where I'm getting to.
Well, I was about to say, not to beat a dead horse, but I would have definitely taken a right tackle instead of taking a kicker. But hey, what do I know? So it sounds like Jalen Moore is being prepped for that. You already heard Kyle Shanahan talk about Burford being relieved. So Feliciano's the new Brunskill. He's going to flip around. Thought Jake Brendel was actually one of the better pass protectors. I think he was graded the highest, if I'm not mistaken, by PFF in this game. Very impressed with Feliciano. He's a savvy guy. He's a starter. Maybe should have been starting to begin with. But again, when you look at Burford, you probably thought, hey, 2nd year jump, after the year that he had last year. Trent isn't all the way back. I mean, anytime you see 4 pressures on Trent Williams, you know that he's not all the way healthy. I think Kyle Shanahan described it today. His performance was pretty heroic, and he didn't think he was going to play. So another week, no setbacks. I'm the least worried about Trent Williams, the least worried. But the Colin McKivitz thing is coming to a head at this point, like right now, because Kyle Shanahan's bringing this up. This isn't people making things up. This isn't people running with rumors. Kyle Shanahan himself put out there that Jalen Moore could play right tackle. Now, I'm of the mind that it's not exactly easy like Madden to take someone from left tackle to right tackle and do it. But if they are going to prep and start, then start. And it's better to be prepared and not need it than need it and not be prepared. Man, I'm killing it with these dad
I like
references
it
today. Yeah,
I
it's
like
so
it.
good. But so I think that it's kind of time for Colin McKivitz now to have the conversation of like, okay, the defense is starting to round into shape. Purdy's playing well. Everybody's back. What else do we have to fix? It just feels like there's one really big thing to fix, and that's offensive line. You want guys to be able to be healthy down the stretch, and you're going to face teams with great pass rush. So, Colin McKivitz, you're on the clock, man, and that's not me putting you on the clock. Kyle Shanahan's putting you on the clock.
And the funny thing is about Trent Williams is I think obviously coming back from an ankle sprain never easy, especially somebody with a bigger frame as his. But man, when he gets into open space, is there a more terrifying? I'm not even going to say football player. I'm going to say human being, because 21 for Jacksonville, and I apologize, I don't have the name in front of me. on that McCaffrey 20-yard run wanted no business, just no business. And I don't think I can think of a more terrifying human being to just see open space running at me than Trent Williams. So I think from that standpoint, like, yeah, man, he looked pretty good, but you also got to remember, like, a lot of his job is kind of stepping back on that ankle, so probably wasn't easy. But boy, oh boy, was that a terrifying play from Trent Williams.
Yeah. This is the first time that Trent Williams says the first time he's ever seen a defender run from him.
That was just scary. Like I would run. Like I don't blame. Like that's the thing. Like in the NFL, like it looks kind of funny to see another NFL player running, but like I don't blame him. I would absolutely do the same thing.
Somebody that big should not be able to move that fast.
No,
Yeah.
and it's scary. I don't like it. Like, well, I like it because he's on the Niners, but like,
Right.
I wouldn't like it as a defender. Let's just say that.
And he's about 75%, I'd say 75, 80% right now.
I think that's what he said too.
Oh, okay, good. There you go. Well. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, good. So, he'll be fine. That's good.
So all around good day for the offensive line outside of McKivitz. Halfway point, we're about to flip to the defense, where I think the conversation is getting a little more fun. But before, good time to remind people, subscribe. YouTube channel, Jason Aponte's YouTube channel, great YouTube content. If you're looking for a great holiday present to get a loved one, cannot think of a better gift to gift than Jason Aponte's YouTube channel. Free, just print out a piece of paper saying, hey, you are subscribed to the Sprint Right Option or Jason Aponte's YouTube channel. Your loved one will love it. I promise. That's an Andrew Pasquini guarantee. Jason, the defensive side of the ball. Let's start with that defensive line. I cannot think of a more magical moment than it was almost here's my analogy. It was like the Lady and the Tramp with the piece of spaghetti, and they kind of came together at the same time. Yeah. That was such a beautiful moment for Nick Bosa and Chase Young to have that, not just in general, but in their first game together, like to have that where it was almost instantaneous contact of the quarterback, and then Bosa's able to get that strip sack. What were your thoughts on the defensive line, and who was the best player in your mind on that D-line yesterday?
Well, the interesting part is the first two snaps of the game were 5 down linemen, and I thought that was one of the intriguing things. And Chase Young didn't start, so they had 5 down linemen, but Chase Young wasn't one of them. Kinlaw was out there, and they had one linebacker that was Fred. And then obviously you look back in the secondary and you see, wait a minute, that's Ambry Thomas, and he's starting. Ambry Thomas started, right? Like, so you talk about the adjustments and you talk about schematically, but I think the bigger thing was the defensive line formations, and they wanted to use different ways. And you could see Young and Bosa standing over the center in the A gap. That's got to be frightening when all you have done is like, oh, well, how do we stop them coming off the edge? Oh, great. They're lined up here in the middle now. Those are some of the adjustments that you saw. But the best player, honestly, it was Bosa. But Hargrave and Armstead also, like, it's all of them. I think the one thing that's a little disappointing is, like, I was watching Randy Gregory a little bit, and he's completely situational now because Chase Young is going to be on the field as much as they can get him on there. But he's getting, like, stood up. Like, he's not, like, getting any push, anything like that right now. Like, Randy Gregory is just, like, the one thing that I'm looking at, like, when I'm watching him, just like, damn, like, he's not getting to the quarterback at all. But funny how things work. Steve Wilkes comes down from the booth. He wears Bred 11s, which I think is the biggest adjustment. Like, I don't know if you can drip that hard as a defensive coordinator. It's like, all right, I'm getting on the booth. I'm going to be on TV. Let's pull out the heat. So the sneaker heat was something that I didn't see coming from I didn't see that coming from the coach. But no, the defensive fronts, the way that they fixed them and they were moving them around, and they were able to finish the job, right? Pressures and getting sacks. All of those things important. There's no one player on this defensive line that was great. They were all great. The starters, and Chase Young is just only going to get better as time goes on.
Yeah, and that's kind of the point I wanted you to get to, Jason, was I thought the defensive line as a whole was perfect. I personally, I think I liked Hargrave's game a little better than Bosa's, but I mean, really, you can make an argument for both because not to brag, Jason Aponte, but Andrew, big pressures over sack guy because pressures can force turnovers. Hargrave had a pressure that forced an interception. Bosa had a pressure that forced an interception. And that's what you want to see. That's how you know this Niners defense is working, is Bosa getting in the backfield, pass rushers getting in the backfield, forcing those turnovers. Armstead having a sack on the second play of the game, the third play of the game was impressive. Hargrave having a pressure and a sack and another sack on Jacksonville's first 2 third down attempts of the game. Like, that's just that's just setting the tone early. So yeah, I wanted to make sure we talked about Javon Hargrave because I thought Hargrave was just as good as Bosa. They both had a sack and a half. Armstead had a half a sack. Chase Young had a half a sack. This is the game you want to see out of this defensive line. And to me, this was the to me, this is the game that this was the game that turned the defense around. Whether you want to talk about it was Wilkes on the sideline, whatever it may be. The pass rush looked like the pass rush we're familiar with really for the first time this season. Now let's see where they go from here. But this, to me, was the game that turned the season around, at least for the defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, a little bit of it is the schematics. A little bit of it is like the guys off the bye week, and guys just performing. Again, like the blame of this defense was thrown at the feet of Steve Wilkes without talking to the players. Now, if we're going to talk about linebackers, we're going to talk about everything else. I want to talk about something that I did notice that is negative during the game broadcast and watching it again. The missed tackles are blowing my mind, man. Oh, my God. It's not one player either. Hargrave misses a tackle. Warner misses a tackle. Greenlaw misses a tackle. Lenore missing a tackle. It's insane. It's insane. Like, obviously, it's of no consequence.
Yeah.
But better teams are going to exploit that. Like, the missed tackles thing is the only thing that when I watched the film again, like, I walked away and I was like, okay, this is a problem now. Now it's a trend. It's not a one-week thing. This is a trend now. This is a problem. You need to fix this. I don't know what it is. Just get back to basics. Please, somehow. It was of no consequence in this game. But if you play like that and you're not able to tackle, that's the stuff that was jumping out the most to me. For every good play, and there were many of them, right? We're going to talk about a bunch of them because the defense was great and they only allowed 3 points. My God, the missed tackles are mind-numbing, and it's everybody. It's not just one person. I don't know what to say about it anymore.
Yeah, and that maybe that's how we can pivot. Let's just pivot to linebackers and cornerbacks because that's where the missed tackles come in. Because I think maybe my biggest concern out of the game yesterday is not just the usage of Diamador Lenore in the slot because he allowed 7 receptions on 7 targets for 107 yards, but it's the missed tackles. He had 3 missed tackles. Off the top of my head, I know 2 of the missed tackles resulted in at least 15-yard gains for Jacksonville. And to me, not just in the Niners the Niners defense, but I really think a lot of defenses around the league is that slot corner has so much run responsibilities and backfield responsibilities that you want such a sure tackler. And Diamador Lenore leading the way with 3 missed tackles. Fred Warner having 2 missed tackles as well. Not a good thing. Missed tackles are definitely becoming a concern, and that's something that we might have to because as you said, Jason, no harm, no foul in this game because they won by such a big thing. But if this continues and we get into January and a playoff game is maybe decided by a missed tackle, that's going to be the concern. And that was the concern, 3 years ago? This team couldn't tackle. I don't like that it's kind of regressed back to that point. But in the scheme of things, at least everything else was kind of working as it was. I don't know. I'm not going to pretend like I know how to fix missed tackle problems. I don't know if you just tell them, be more physical, like rowdy, hey, do your job.
It's chase the torso, right? The torso can't, you can shake everything else like to try to fake somebody up, but you can't fake that. So chase the torso, drive to the ground, finish with your legs, take away the legs. It's simple stuff, right? Like it is really simple stuff. And angles more than anything. Like it's like if you're in a bad angle, you're just gonna wind up flailing at somebody and missing because it's a last ditch effort. Find yourself in better spots to cut to the ball and just finish. Like it's fixable. I guess that's the best way to put it. It's fixable. But man, this is a trend. It's really a trend.
Yeah. But maybe my biggest question I have for you, Jason, it was kind of one I teased a little bit on Friday when I said, hey, everybody talking about Steve Wilkes, and if the Niners have a good defensive performance, people are going to talk about him being on the sideline. But when people like Jason, Brett, Rich, all of them watch the film, I have a feeling you're going to notice things on the defensive side. And I think to me, the reason the pass rush was so effective yesterday, and then I haven't watched the tape, so this is just me surmising it from what I saw yesterday during the game, was I'm assuming the cornerbacks were probably a little tighter in coverage. And that's my guess without looking at anything. Is that what you noticed when you watched it? Or do you think it was the pass rush was just getting there a lot quicker yesterday against Trevor Lawrence? What was your thoughts of the secondary kind of against those Jacksonville receivers?
The answer is all of it. Pass rush was winning. They were mixing it up. They were a little bit tighter. They were better in coverage, right? Like the perfect coverage doesn't happen unless you execute. So the execution was there. Like it's all of those things, right? Like there's not one thing. It's not like Wilkes was just like, hey, everybody man up and like, press man, we're gonna do this the entire time. No, like it was a lot of the pass rush. It was a lot of the secondary on the back end. It was a lot of the right call. And it was a lot too of the fact that, besides Christian Kirk, the Jaguars had a lot of problems getting guys open. Like Calvin really is not that guy that they thought they were getting, right? Evan Ingram is fine, but he wasn't really open. Like there's not much for them. And then, just as we're on right now, Zay Jones didn't play yesterday. Zay Jones just got arrested. So Jacksonville's in deep trouble right now, like when it comes to like their receivers. So it's a lot of those things. It's their personnel. It's what the 49ers were able to mix and match and do. They executed, and the pass rush got there. So when you put all that together, that's really like all that stuff can go unnoticed, or like, I mean, the secondary could, the secondaries was clamps. At times there were guys open, but there wasn't time. At times, when Lawrence looked, there was coverage and it helped the pass rush get there. It was all in tandem. It was all a great thing. So that bye week was actually very beneficial in terms of getting everybody on the right page, on the same page, and executing. And I think, again, it you can throw it at the feet of the play caller, but the players have to execute, man. If they call the right play and nothing happens and the players don't execute, then, like, at what point do we blame the players, right? Like, everybody talks about the zero blitz against Minnesota. If Mooney Ward intercepts that, nobody even cares that was the play call, even if it was the wrong play call, right? Like, and that's kind of what Gibson was talking about. Like, we as players have to fix if there's a bad play call. Like, and he didn't mean to say that, like, Wilkes is calling a bad play. It's like, he kind of was just calling them out for not executing. And it's just like, like, I think that's more what it is than anything. It was the execution. It was a little bit that the pass rush was getting there. Sometimes the secondary was covering enough for the pass rush to get there. It was a combination of those things, man. Like, there's not one thing you could point to, but did a great job disguising. Sometimes zone, sometimes man, but they were covering, and they definitely had a great plan coming out of the bye for Jacksonville. Very impressed with Steve Wilkes. Hopefully this will get people to calm down just a little bit.
Last thing I got on the defense, Jason, it's not even really a question. I'm just going to say 2 words, and I'm going to let you go. Ambry Thomas.
Good for you, young man. Good for you. Okay, so everybody's going to look at the long catch that he gave up to Christian Kirk, but Christian Kirk was doing that to everybody.
Christian Kirk was eating yesterday.
Yeah, and maybe Christian Kirk's good. I mean, we laughed at them for like how they paid him and everything, but maybe he's good.
6 for 104.
Right. But Ambry Thomas, after he stripped, the fumble. Looking at Steve Wilkes, I read his lips, and he said, "Thanks for believing in me," or like, something to that effect. And that's really what I took away from that is, like, defensive back is already so hard as it is, and it's such a how much confidence do you have position that sometimes only a little bit can push you in the right direction. Sometimes only a little bit could push you in the wrong direction. And you have to kind of hope that, first of all, I think the takeaway from Ambry Thomas being there is that they wanted Isaiah Oliver off the field.
Yes.
Like, they wanted him absolutely off the field.
Yes.
So no matter what you think about putting Ambry Thomas on the field, the bigger thing is they want Isaiah Oliver off the field. So that's why they're like, hey, we're going to stick with Lenore in the slot. We feel that we're better there. And we're going to take our shot. Yeah, we're going to take our shot with Ambry Thomas on the outside. And what I'm getting at with the confidence thing is, it's like, if you build your confidence and start playing a little bit more confident, understanding the scheme, understanding what guys are trying to do to you, you can mask any sort of deficiencies that you have. I mean, we watched this young man play down the stretch during a playoff stretch, and D'Amico Ryans found ways to keep him out of harm's way. Like, to the point where he had to start, his first game was against Chase, Higgins, and Boyd. And it only was until the end of that game where you really started to see things like happen where they started to attack him. You have to kind of think that the 49ers are thinking that same way right now, right? Like, we need you on the field because we don't want this guy on the field, but we can put you in positions to succeed. And I think when he was talking to Wilkes, it felt like Wilkes might have been the only person fighting for him in the building, because Wilkes doesn't have personnel control. Kyle Shanahan does. So either Wilkes made an executive decision to get him on the field, which I don't think happens because Kyle is in charge of personnel, or he's been banging the drum for Ambry. And that's why Ambry was like, thanks for believing in me. And you never know, man. Like, you never know. A play like that, a few plays that go your way, an interception here, a PBU there, your confidence goes through the roof. So, look, I've been hard on you, Ambry Thomas. I think a lot of us have. But that's a step in the right direction. And if you're gonna change any narrative about yourself, whenever you get a shot, you have to like put a chokehold on that thing, like and take it to the next level. So who knows, man? Optimistically coming out of this game, I feel good about everything. It's got me saying nice things about Ambry Thomas, and it's making me hopeful for him going forward. So I like it, man. I hope he can continue to play well.
And I think the thing that's kind of lost in all the shenanigans of the forced fumble that happened, because I feel like all the stuff that happened after the play kind of took the shine away from the play. But that's sneaky, the play of the game, because Jacksonville's inside the 10-yard line in a 20-3 game. If they score a touchdown, it's 20-10 with 6 minutes left in the third. Anything can happen at that point. And obviously, the touchdown being nullified is a bummer, and you don't want to see it. But just to force the turnover in that spot, Niners go down and score a touchdown. I know I made the joke the game-winning touchdown was scored in the first quarter, but that sequence of plays, the forced fumble into a 7-play, 81-yard touchdown drive, that put the game away. So I wanted to make sure Ambry Thomas got his little shine, because let's be honest, Jason, this podcast has not been the nicest to him. And I'm a big believer in when you deserve your flowers, let's give it to you. And Ambry Thomas absolutely earned it yesterday. So that's where I'm at with the defense. You have any final thoughts on the defense before we get into 3 stars and get up out of here?
Talanoa Hufanga, what deal with some sorcerer did you make that the ball just bounces to you?
Dude,
it's insane. Yeah. It's insane, dude. Jimmy Ward and Tart were here for so long that they never got bounces. They never got any of them. And yet Hufanga's on the sideline and he's sitting on the bench and like the ball bounces and it's like in his hands. Like what is going on? What deal did you make? What sort of sorcery and black magic do you have in those gloves, man?
Yeah, love it. Yeah, no, he's always seems to be there. I don't know. Maybe it's a right place, right time thing. Maybe he just knows the positioning to be in. But yeah, man, it always seems that when there's a deflection, it lands right into Talanoa Hufanga's hands. So Jason, there it is. There's all the positions. Good win for the Niners. I think you could argue that they're on a 2-game winning streak at this point because taking sole possession of first place in your division on your bye week should count as a win. So we're going to call this 2-game winning streak. We'll just roll with it.
And it was almost left hand up because Washington got played in that Seattle game. It was about to be. I literally had it locked in the chamber, ready to tweet it. The video. If they had that game, man, Seattle got bailed out by penalties, man. Seattle is not like that, man. So far from what I've been seeing.
No. So here we go, Jason. 3 stars, 3 stars, 3 stars. Number 3 star for me. I'm taking the chance. I'm taking the opportunity. Ambry Thomas. Let's go.
Nice.
I just think just for the turnover, I know number 1 coverage grade on the Niners yesterday, 82.3. He was targeted 3 times, allowed 2 receptions for 14 yards, at least per PFF. But that play, man, just forcing the fumble in that situation where Jacksonville's driving a chance to make it a 2-possession game halfway through the third quarter. And he makes the play. He makes the play of the game. So to me, Ambry Thomas, man, shout out, number 3 star. We'd love to see it.
My number 3 star is John Feliciano. Again, like in your first start, I think it's 1 pressure, one hurry. But other than that, glowing grades and just a guy who understands, again, as a professional, when your number's called, it's time for you to play. You played yourself into a role, and Kyle Shanahan talked about it in practice. He's been one of those guys, and he was ready to go, man. I think that's an interesting development because how many teams can say they have a backup, right? Like we pine for Daniel Brunskill to come back. We even wanted them to trade for him back at the deadline.
I said in my Niners Nation article that this is the one trade the Niners need to make.
Yeah, and now you have somebody who can play right guard, and if he's an upgrade from Burford, that can help. Now, obviously, we figure out what's going on with right tackle, but at the same time, John Feliciano, great game, stepped in, true professional, man. That's why he's been a starter almost everywhere that he's been, Giants, Bills, wherever. Just I feel like an underrated signing, and we kind of had that inkling that he would be Brunskill, but now he is the new Brunskill, and I think that was something that was invaluable, and the 49ers almost didn't know what they had until it was gone, but then they immediately filled it with the same type of player, so I guess they did realize what was gone.
My number 2 star, it's going to be Brock Purdy. 296, 3 touchdowns. And I think the thing that's most impressive about it is it was a quiet 296. It wasn't that loud. I think I was, to be honest, I didn't know how many yards he had. And when I put him in as one of my winners for yesterday, NinersNation.com, we were right there still. Jason, don't know if people know. I was very surprised to see it was 296. I didn't think he had nearly as many yards, but I guess that's what happens when you have a 66-yard touchdown throw and you complete, 75% of your passes. So I'm going to go Brock Purdy, my second star. I thought he had such a good game, and especially with kind of the talks of the past few weeks of him in the fourth quarter, to see him bounce back like that, take it. I'll take it 10 out of 10 times.
Yeah, my number 2 star, George Kittle, man. Back-to-back 100-yard games. Big play guy. Again, I think we all lose sight of the fact that he still is that guy. It's just, those games where he's either blocking or just isn't getting the targets. It's good to see him involved, man. George Kittle, good at football. That's my analysis. Very good at football, man. And the game's a lot more fun when he's making plays because of who he is. So, yeah, George Kittle, man, my number 2 star.
I'm going to take my number 1 star. I think I know who your number 1 star is, so I'm going to go a little different. I'm going to go Javon Hargrave.
Nice.
I have a feeling I know who yours is for very good reason. So I want to make sure I shout out the guy I was impressed with. 4 pressures, a sack and a half yesterday. Setting the tone early. His half a sack came on Jacksonville's first third down of the game. His second sack of the game came on Jacksonville's second third down of the game. The Niners turn around, score 10 points in that span. Game's over. But then he had a pressure that resulted in an interception. He's doing those things. This was the game I felt like we were waiting for Javon Hargrave to have. He had it. And now it feels like that with the addition of Chase Young, things get a little more exciting with this line. We see what it looks like one time, and it looks amazing. You hope it looks the rest of the way. But for him to give that performance yesterday, when I feel like a lot of people were talking about Bosa and Chase Young because of that Ohio State connection, go blue. Shout out Hargrave for that. So number 1 star, Javon Hargrave.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that, and it's funny because going into this game, I had to answer the question on someone else's show about how do we feel about Hargrave signing, and I would say, listen, it started well, and right now it's not, but again, maybe the bye week was good for everybody, and that's a welcome sight because if this pass rush looks like that week in week out, I'll take that against anybody, and it doesn't matter. Any 30 teams, 31 teams, whatever, I'll take it every single day. My number 1 star is Brock Purdy, man. I don't know how you can play better football than he's been playing.
Okay.
For stretches. He's making throws look routine on film that aren't routine. And if another quarterback made them, then people would be losing their mind. I think if Brock Purdy was drafted at the top of the first round, people would just be like, "Oh my God, the next coming," and he's it's just his draft capital continues to be something that people just discount his play about.
Yeah, I have my friends yesterday. We're in a group chat. We're talking about how overrated they think Trevor Lawrence is, and people hype him up because he was the first pick. It's almost like the opposite of. I don't think Lawrence is overrated whatsoever.
No, I don't think so either.
Quarterback, but it's almost flipped, right? It's Purdy is at the end of the draft. We're waiting for him to crash, as opposed to being like, well, maybe this stays on. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Keep going.
No, and that's what's funny. It's okay, I'm waiting for the bottom to fall out on Purdy, but let's have patience with everybody else. Let's have patience with Lawrence. Let's have patience with all these guys, right? We need to see more. That's what I was talking about with the discourse about Brock Purdy that is so baffling to me. It's the rush to push him ahead of people when he doesn't have to be, and it's also the rush to knock him down when all we should be doing is gathering information. But it's funny that we're allowed to gather information about Trevor Lawrence. People are still not all the way out on certain quarterbacks that have been in the league for years, right? And this matters, this situation. But Purdy is it's definitive. It's either he sucks or he's great. And it's the weirdest thing to me in the world. Instead of trying to actually objectively pick apart his game and dissect it. It's what is the need to push this guy ahead of certain guys? And what's the need to knock him down when none of that same energy is given his way, right? Everybody else gets time. Everyone else has reasons why things are happening to them. But with Purdy, he either has to be great or he's just terrible. And I think that's the weirdest thing. It's only with him. It is literally only with him. And it's always about the circumstances, the play caller, the playmakers, and, he's a thinking dunker. It's all of these things, but instead it's you're ignoring the body of work. You're ignoring who he is. Strip away the draft capital. Just evaluate the kid. Evaluate the kid on how he plays football. I think that's the easiest part. But certain guys, when they struggle, there's a reason, right? Oh, well, Trevor Lawrence had and I was saying this last time, Trevor Lawrence had a bunch of drop balls, and I think he's been playing a lot better than people think. Well, you know what? Trevor Lawrence played pretty shitty on Sunday. I think we can say that. That doesn't mean that Trevor Lawrence is a bad quarterback. That doesn't mean that Brock Purdy's better than him. Trevor Lawrence had a bad day at the office against a very good defense.
It's very good defense.
That happens, right? So it's just strange. Like, there's never like that keep your same energy with Brock Purdy in any way with other people. It's always like, shit, it even happened with Sam Darnold. Well, wait till Sam Darnold gets a play caller. Sam Darnold's been trash, but yet we have to give him the benefit of the doubt, but we have to like rush to judgment on Brock Purdy. It's so baffling to me that Brock Purdy seems to be the only guy. So yeah, number one star Brock Purdy. When he plays like that, that team is hard to beat, man. And that's how he's played largely all year. Aside from the turnovers, which you cannot toss out, and they come at critical moments, and there's no good time to turn the ball over. That's largely who Brock Purdy has been this season and for the time that we've seen him. So I want to make sure that we don't lose sight of the forest by staring at the trees. There, I finally got it. Stop getting away from this body of work, man. Brock Purdy's been playing fine. He's been playing great football, and he was great on Sunday.
I'm going to do something that I don't think we've ever done in the history of this podcast. I am going to give an honorary number one star.
Oh, okay.
Because I picked Hargrave thinking you were going to take Nick Bosa. And I want to make sure we give Nick Bosa an honorary number one star. It's like being an honorary deputy, They give you the fake little sheriff star.
Like Shaq?
And you can pretend. Yeah, exactly. I felt like we were waiting for a Nick Bosa game like this where he kind of just took over. And I feel like this is the close. I don't know if this is a game he took over, but this felt like the closest we've been to it. I felt like he was in the backfield a lot. I'm honestly surprised that he was only credited with 4 pressures. I felt like he was in the backfield a lot. 1.5 sacks, 3 tackles. I just want to make sure we give him his flowers too, because he was probably better than Hargrave. We just talk a lot about Bosa, and I assumed you had him as your number one. So I want to make sure he gets credit as a number one star because he was pretty goddamn dominant yesterday.
Welcome to the party, pal. I mean, if that's all it took was Chase Young to get here, why don't we go out there and trade for more OSU guys? I hear that Michael Thomas guy is a fairly exemplary citizen. Let's bring him in.
Yes, he doesn't like loud noises around his house.
Oh man, he's such a troll. That's actually really funny.
I sent a thing on Instagram. I don't know if you saw it, but I saw Instagram post calling Young and Bosa the Dudley Boy, the 2023 Dudley Boys.
Oh yeah, so good.
I think we should run with it. I think we should run with that.
I
Also, I'm officially unleashing it. Mitch Wisnowski from now on this podcast is going to be Mitchie Dubs. We're running with Mitchie Dubs because he's a very good punter. And I know we don't like special teams on this podcast, but he's turned out to be a pretty damn good punter.
That's how you know this game. That's how you know this game was a blowout. That we're talking
Mitchie
about
Dubs.
the punter.
Mitchie Dubs. We love it. So I just want to make sure we throw that out.
Sure. Why not? Sure. Why not? By the way, those times, and this is how you know the offense was rolling, those times that the 49ers had to punt were because of penalties. Yeah. Like they literally were stopping themselves. They were stopping themselves. That's how good the offense was yesterday.
Yeah. It's almost shocking. It's I think yesterday was the definition of it, but it's weird. It's almost like the Niners offense needs that good start to get rolling, and then because I feel like the Niners offense is just score as many points as fast as you can, and then we can get into the actual offense that's just about kind of like chewing clock and eating time off. And that I think yesterday was that, because I did look it up. Yesterday was the first time the Niners have had a first quarter touchdown since the Browns game, and the first time they had 2 scores in the first quarter since Arizona, which is right around where things kind of got weird. So scoring 10 points in the first quarter, obviously huge. So I want to make sure we get that. I also want to make sure I shout out, since we're out of here, I want to shout out my boss at work, Sierra. She gave birth to her first child today. She's a big Niner fan. Child was due on Halloween. She was excited that the baby did not make the appearance until after because she said, I want the bye week. If the baby comes during the bye week, fantastic. I then made the joke with her that maybe the baby doesn't want to see a losing Niners team, and the Niners need to win to turn it around. Niners in their losing streak yesterday. She gave birth 3 hours later. So I want to shout out Sierra, big Niner fan. Very happy for her first kid, daughter. We love it. So I want to shout out
congratulations.
So congratulations, Sierra. I wanted to make sure I got that.
Congratulations. That is all good vibes. I mean, and that's how good this was. It's just there's nothing really to be we talked about things that are negative, but I'm not talking about like that. I'm just saying there's nothing really to complain about. And now the kid,
No,
like, that's it.
yeah.
Like, yeah, we're
Oh,
Super
it-
Bowl, baby.
it
Man,
was
book your plans for Vegas, baby.
Yeah, I might text her that now. Just tell her. But no, her explicitly telling me that she's happy she waited until after Halloween so she could try and time it with the Niners bye week is phenomenal, and that's all I needed to hear. So we love it. Shout out Sierra. Jason, we just hit an hour. I think it's a good time to get up out of here. My mouth is still numb. Don't know if you can tell, but I've been drooling.
I think it's gotten better.
It's gotten better, but it still feels numb. I've been trying to drink my water, but every time it's just kind of like gooped out of my mouth. It's been awkward. So I'm going to get off of a camera and just enjoy my night. Jason, I hope you enjoy yours. We'll be back on Friday as the 49ers take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Don't know if there's anybody that an Ohio State person would dislike on the Buccaneers. I don't know, maybe an Oklahoma thing. And now the Niners have two Ohio State pass rushers. Maybe I have a joke that I want to say. Bosa wouldn't appreciate it, but that Browns game was Bosa's coming out party in 2019. But Jason Aponte as always.
Let's go Niners. And it's funny that a team can win a game when they don't turn the football over and they don't penalize themselves. Funny how that works.
We love it. Hey, what do we think of Tottenham, Jason? I'm just gonna leave it at that.
Oi. I don't know.
Hey, that's not how it goes. I'll tell you after.
That's not how it goes.
Shit.
Welcome, everybody.
We are live.
My name is Jason Aponte.
I am Andrew Pasquini.
We're working. That's it. We're working over here. That's it. Let's go Niners.
Let's go Niners.
Sprint Ride Option Podcast.